Welcome back, everyone, to episode 2. We're joined today with Dr. Jessica Morales-Chicas. This is Tatev Talks, where brains meets banter. We'll be right back. Hi, Dr. MC.
Hi.
Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to do a really brief intro for anybody who doesn't know you. So you have been in the Child and Family Studies department for, I want to say 12 years now, different campuses maybe, but you've been teaching for about 12 years. You're also very, very prominent in the research community, which is what a lot of our conversation is going to be about today. You're also very good at program development and direction. You do work in STEM motivation. You talk about do a lot of work with kids because child and family studies, but you mentor students. You are an amazing researcher, a grant writer, and just literally all of the things. So I'm just very happy to have you here to talk about a lot of things today.
Well, thank you. that made me sound important.
You kind of are important, just a little bit, just not to toot your horn, but just a little bit you are important.
Thank you.
I actually want to start off with a little bit of research talk. So one thing that I have my students do is try to understand how to explain research in layman's terms. So I think one thing that's cool about you and cool about me is we're both first-generation students, and a lot of the students that we teach are also first-generation students. But what tends to happen with that is there's a big gap between what our students are learning and what they can explain to their families, or what they can explain to anybody else who's not in academia. So I think my first question for you is, how would you explain research, just what it is as a whole, in layman's terms?
Yeah, that's a good question. and an important one, because you're right. I remember thinking as a first-gen student, like research was so abstract. Like we would learn it in class, but like, how did they come up with this statistic?
Right.
How did they just make it up? Like I didn't understand it until I took more courses about it and until I did it. But I actually was challenged to answer this question recently too, because I had career day at my son's school.
Oh, nice.
And I thought, how in the world am I going to explain to TK students
literally
what a professor does?
Right.
And so I said, well, professors teach grownups, and
that's good.
They also answer and ask big questions, right? So I kept it very surface level and I got into it. But to answer your question, I would say research is about asking big questions about a phenomenon you're interested in. It could be about animals, about an object. It could be about humans. And so what I do in my research is I understand, how do humans stay motivated in school? How do they stay connected and feeling like they belong? And how do we remove barriers to their success?
Nice. That's a really good way of explaining it.
In a nutshell.
And did the TK students are like, now I want to be a researcher?
I don't know. They were excited about the robots and stuff I brought. They just wanted to play, which I don't blame them.
I mean, they're TK students. So maybe down the line, when they're nearing towards high school, they're like, remember that one lady that came to our school a while back? And then they'll remember you.
I will say this, though. I was a preschool teacher at one point in my life.
Oh, nice.
Many moons ago.
Yes, that's right.
And I've worn a lot of hats.
You've worn a lot of hats, yeah.
One thing we used to do is we used to use a scientific method as part of our teaching. So it was a lot of emergent learning. So what that means is that you're not sitting there teaching ABCs, 1, 2, 3s. It's what are the students interested in? Oh, they're interested in, they're talking about dinosaurs a lot for whatever reason. Then you bring in objects that look like dinosaurs. You bring in books, and then you have conversations about it. But you ask questions using the scientific method. So I wonder what would happen if this. Let's test it out.
No.
What do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction, right? What's your hypothesis? Yeah. And the more you do that, and you could do that as a parent, as a
I do that now
teacher,
as a college teacher. I'm like, what do you think would happen if we just looked at the syllabus?
Yeah.
What? We might find the answer we're looking for. Yeah, it's a really good one. I like that.
So my point is that kids could understand the scientific method. And if they could understand it, anyone could understand it. It just sounds scarier than it really is. But
yeah, I think we do make it scary. I think we definitely try to make it scary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because the consequences of doing bad research is it can be so significant.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to be like, there's big things at risk, but that also takes away from people who have not really experienced research as a kid of getting into the field for sure.
Right.
I do want to ask you if there's something specific in terms of your research that you would want to talk about. So one activity that I do with my students after we try to think about how to explain research as layman's terms is the project that they're working on. So I'm currently teaching research methods. The project that they're working on in that class, I ask them to explain it to a partner, someone who's not in their group, but as they would explain it to their grandmother or to their parents or someone really not in the realm of academia, right? They always find that to be quite difficult. So I want to ask you how you would explain your research project. And I know you're working on multiple grants right now and multiple research projects. So maybe just anyone that you think is the most interesting, maybe, how you would explain it to your grandma or your mom.
And I've had to do this in Spanish, which, mind you,
no way.
Yeah, I am
Makes
bilingual
it more difficult.
and biliterate, but for some reason, explaining research in Spanish is just so much harder, right?
I mean, I've thought about this for years now, and I've been in research for 6-7 years or something like that. And I don't know if we have a term for research in Armenian.
Yeah.
So I've just never been able to explain it, which is why I like doing these activities because I think it helps me get a new perspective on it. So my parents have no idea. They're just like, oh, she goes to school. And I'm like, yeah, she does. And then that's it. The image stops there. Like, she's just at school.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yeah.
So I would say to answer your question, I think my research has evolved. I used to do a lot of research that looked at big data sets on what students are perceiving or how are they behaving and their motivation in schools, right? And so we would look at things over time, or we would look at belongingness, like how connected they feel to that school, because belongingness really shapes how students actually perform in the long term, right? So that's kind of where my research started. Now I'm doing a lot of programming, as you kind of mentioned. I run multiple programs. And so a lot of it is on program effectiveness and really understanding before students came into the program, how were they, right? In terms of different outcomes, persistence, meaning how long do they actually want to be at school? Are they staying? Are they focused, right? What barriers inhibit that? And then how does that change over time? Right. And so we collect a lot of pre-data, post-data. I also used to do a lot of quantitative research, which focuses more on numbers, right? Looking at trends, averages, percentages. Now I do some mixed method stuff, which looks at more qualitative.
Qualitative.
Storytelling, right? Like really getting at to the nuances of like people's life experiences and uplifting those stories. So I think unlike most researchers that kind of stay like, I study sleep and that's what I do my whole entire career. I've used different methodologies. Which is a challenge, which is a challenge, but I kind of go where whatever is guiding me takes me. And right now it happens to be program development and really like showcasing how these programs work and operate.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. So I had this topic for a little bit later, but now that you mentioned that, we have this, I guess, misconception. I would call it a misconception that when you go into grad school, you need to know what your research trajectory is or like what you would want to do because that's the thing you're going to do for the rest of your life. I guess that's a narrative that's kind of pushed onto students. So I have a lot of students who are like lost and they're like, I want to go to grad school, but I'm not sure what I want to research. I was also one of those students going into my PhD program. I was like, kind of want to do this thing, but I'm not totally sure. And the idea that you can switch it up is actually one I haven't heard. Like everyone who I talk to who's a grand researcher, like years and years and years, is always like, no, I do sleep. Right. No, I do adolescent, whatever. Or no, I do motivation. That's the one thing. So I think it's cool to know that you can switch it up. And if you want to just speak to that a little bit, like how did you get to the point where you're like, no, I'm okay to change. It's totally fine. I don't have to stick to this.
So I will say you always want your North Star, right? Like what is driving what you do and whether that's in your career, in your research, in who you are as a human being. So my North Star has always been, and that never has changed, making education better for students. That's my North Star.
Yeah.
How I get there has taken many directions, right? So that could be developing a program for students, right? That helps them become, helps them persist and stay in school and retain their interest, right? STEM, for example, science, technology, engineering, and math. I did not even think of that as like a concept, or, multiple disciplines put together. Like, what is that?
And now you're running a program.
And now most of my research, now that's mostly my North Star, is I do a lot of STEM stuff. And the reason for that started actually in graduate school, because I was doing work and I was really trying to understand how in education students are tracked sometimes, right? And so what that means is that the students that are considered lower performing, they're put into classes together, right? Students that are higher performing are put into classes together, right? And the research suggests that the students in the lower track classes end up underperforming. Well, when you think about it, the teacher is already coming in with lower expectations. Right. They're under-resourced, right? And then they start to adopt and internalize that perception that they're not high achievers.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
So that's where I started, right? And I was so intrigued by that. And then to study that, you want to study it in different domains like math, science. And that's kind of what led me to STEM. I did not come in thinking at all that I was going to be a STEM researcher, STEM motivation researcher, or STEM education. I also came in wanting to study development. I was a preschool teacher. I love little ones, but I loved working with them. I didn't love researching them as much. I actually enjoyed middle school and high school because a lot is happening there. Middle school students their biology is
especially
changing.
in terms of development, for
There's so much happening. So it's really fascinating. And now, fast forward, I'm doing research on college students, right? Which I did not imagine myself doing. So I think sometimes, like in your career, I think the take-home message for me in your career, wherever it is in life, like sometimes things just pop up and opportunities open or doors open, and then sometimes you just have to take it. As long as it's still with your North Star that's guiding you, it's great. Like what you don't want to do to that point is say, you know what, now I'm going to study cadavers, right? Like that is, it's still humans, but they're dead already. Like it's
how
weird.
Is cadavers the first thing that came to your mind right now?
You know why?
Please,
let me tell you, because
there's cookies on the table. It's Christmas themed cadavers.
Let me tell you why. Because I was talking to a researcher, a colleague of mine, and he studies cadavers, and I was like,
what?
I don't even know what that is. Like,
what do you mean?
I don't. Yeah. Anyway, and so I just kept.
But they're dead. Like, what does he study?
Well, they study the bones and how things function.
This is
in
not
their
someone
bodies.
in ed. This is
definitely not.
I was like, what do they do with
definitely
the
not.
Ed?
No, it's like biology.
Yeah.
And so I would never do that. Like that's just not of interest to me.
It's too jumpy.
So doing a big jump like that would be very difficult for any researcher. And, it's not that it's impossible, but like it's a real big change of direction, right?
Yeah, it's a real big
For me, like, again, as long as it's part of my North Star, it doesn't really matter if it's a different age group, right? It doesn't matter if it's a different methodology. It's still taking me toward how am I helping students?
To your overarching goal.
Exactly.
Nice. And how did you come to that, like North Star? Not the analogy, but like
Good
the
point.
actual, I
Good
want to make
point.
education better for everyone.
Yeah. So I grew up in a town called Pacoima, California. So it's in the north part of the San Fernando Valley. It's always, I think, historic. It has a really complex history, actually. It was predominantly Black, African-American, and it was a community that was redlined. So it was a place where people of color could live, right? They were actually legally able to live there, and at that time, during segregation, folks weren't able to live where they wanted. Now it's transformed into predominantly Latino immigrant community. It's been very different, but my parents still live there to this day. And through my experiences in education, I became really intrigued in this idea of how is it that some people who grew up with a lot of access to resources and privilege and, great education, right? Like they do well and some don't. And how come some folks that grew up in places like me do well and some don't? Like that was like this phenomenon that I really wanted to unpack. And even within my own household, right? I have an older sister and I have a brother. We've had my sister and I very similar trajectories in education. She's a teacher now. My brother was not really into school to this day. Now he has a great job and does well, but he just wasn't for him. And I couldn't understand that. Like, how is it that we grew up in the same household, right? Same values. There's a gender component there for sure. And there's a motivation component for sure. There's a lot of factors. But that was really what like intrigued me initially. And then when I was in middle school, I was in a magnet program, and there's not a lot of magnet programs anymore, but magnet programs are busing programs historically to increase ethnic and racial diversity in schools, right? And I didn't know that. I wanted to go in the performing arts. I wanted to dance and sing. And so that's why I went to that program. And what I learned there is that even though the importance of integration was there, like they were busing kids from different communities into this little community that I lived, folks were still self-segregating by race and ethnicity.
They were grouping regardless.
Yeah. And so I had this like tension point where I was part of the magnet program, but I didn't belong based on how I looked. I didn't feel like I belonged based on how I grew up. I belonged to the community, right? Yeah. And so I started getting into this notion of understanding how diversity functions to shape people's perceptions of how they belong. Oh, wow. Okay. Like, at that early age.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is what, high school?
This was middle school.
Middle school.
So much so that when I went to high school, I said, I don't want to be in a magnet program.
Wow.
It was weird to just be in this, like, I felt like I was tugged in terms of my internal identity. And it's because my identity was being racialized, right? So by the time I got to I would say undergrad, I still didn't know that was something you can study. I didn't even know what a Ph.D. was. I didn't know what research was.
Right.
But as I started to learn about research and learn about programs, I thought, wow, like you can study this stuff. And there was a professor that was studying exactly that, like how does diversity function in schools? So that was my entry point to graduate school. And that's where when I started to do my research. I still look at the role of diversity in schools. That's also one of my North Stars. Which is actually a contentious point right now in our education system.
No, you didn't say. What do you mean? Our education system and racial diversity? What? Oh my gosh, stop it, you.
So, it's interesting, but that's kind of how, I don't even know if I answered your question now.
No, you did. I think where my question was mainly stemming from is the idea that like, you have to stick to one kind of a thing. And I think that's very hard for students, and specifically first generation students, to understand what their one specific thing is. Like, honestly, it's so hard for me, and I'm almost done with my PhD. I'm finishing, soon, I hope. And and that's still hard for me to try to figure out, right? Like, what is it that I want to do? And I haven't had a lot of jumps. A lot of the things I do is in perception. I love the idea of like making education accessible and better and so on and so forth. But I can't to full fruition say what my North Star is, like what is the thing that's driving me? What's the area, the field that I want to go into? And I think a lot of the time what students struggle with is what area that they want to go into. How do they know they want to go into that field, right? Specifically, at least for the psych field, it's like when you're trying to get a PhD, it's do developmental or social or cognitive or like neuro, like clinical. How are they different and what do I do? And they struggle a lot with it. And the idea that you don't have to decide right now and then just that's it for the rest of your life is comforting for students to know. So just kind of understanding how you got to your North Star, I think helps a lot of people who are listening figure out what's driving them. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, my husband, as a example, has had I can't even tell you how many careers.
No way.
He's done social work, public policy, government. He's now in fund development. He's been in research.
Yeah.
He's the epitome of someone who has jumped through different fields and careers, and he's done it well. He's done well in every single one, and I am in awe every time. Like, okay, well, now you want to do that. Follow your dreams. That is, I'm like, as long as you're working and it's something that excites you, and we're paying the bills.
Yeah.
By all means, do what you want, For me, like I said, my North Star hasn't changed so much. And I think because it was driven by like my personal experiences and like my belief in like making sure that people like me, right, that grew up like me, have experiences to be educated and to thrive in education and have social mobility, right?
Yeah.
But not everybody has that, right? For some people, like it takes them a while to get their North Star, or and sometimes that changes, and that's okay. I think the best thing is to try different things, and I think generationally, millennials and above, I will say, we were not, I don't want to say trained, but it wasn't socially acceptable to be changing jobs. I think millennials started that, right? And now the next generations are like really like doing it. Like every 2 years, I'm going to change jobs because I'm going to make more money.
Yeah.
Power to you, you know? Got to do what you got to do.
Sure, you got to do what you got to do. But like okay, you know what? I can't even do the millennial thing today. Okay, we can't. We just simply cannot. But that's good to know. I think literally for anyone who's listening, the idea that like you don't have to stick to one thing, do what excites you as long as you're fulfilling the things that you need to fulfill, paying the bills, doing something like you're passionate about, and overall have like a goal of what you want to do. I think that's fine. But definitely I've found in a lot of my students and in my experience, like going into grad school, specifically during my master's program, it's like, oh, what do I want to do? I guess like researching schizophrenia sounds good. Like it was very scatterbrain because I think we're not often taught like how do you narrow down your interests, you know what I mean? And as humans, we're naturally observers. So we naturally have this thought process of like, you experience something, you're like, but why did that happen? But how did that happen? And the idea that like, just pull from what you know, pull from your experience, something that motivated you, that made it like doable for you, would make it easier for you to find your North Star, I feel.
And I would say also, actually doing the work, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
wait, what?
What I mean is, let me clarify. What I mean is actually going into that experience that you want to do.
No.
To do the,
you're
like,
right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
So like, if you want to, so for me, I would never have thought of research ever. So I was like, well, to understand it, I need to do it.
You need to do it.
I need to actually like get my hands into research and do it. And let me tell you what my first research experience was. It was complete chance. I saw a flyer and it said, get paid $3,000 in the summer to do research. It's like, yeah, come on. What else am I going to do this summer?
Okay, $3,000. Right? Let's go.
At the time, it was a lot of money.
I mean, now it's a lot of money. What do you mean? Let's go.
So I did it. And I was very fortunate to have an amazing graduate student who mentored me and was like, this is what a research project is. You're going to develop your own research project.
Wow.
And I was not interested in language development at the time, but that's what kind
the
of
project
popped up.
was. Yeah.
And I developed a study and I presented at different conferences, and it was to understand how like what would it be? Like prior experiences impact language. And I did an experiment. And I developed these toys, and I felt like it was like a Santa's workshop, which is appropriate for today's conversation. And they're these little toys, and I'd wrap them in different textures, and I'd go to these schools and give kids these like different materials and expose them to the language, like a made up language. It wasn't a real language. Of what the textures would be, and then we would quiz them after, like to see if having experience touching that texture actually helped them remember it.
Wow,
the new word.
Yeah.
So that was my first research. It was complete chance, but I did it, and I would have never ever thought of going to get a Ph.D. had I not worked in a lab.
Yeah.
Right. Alternatively, I worked as a preschool teacher. I thought I was gonna love it, and I did. Preschool. But not to do it for 9 to 5 every day.
How do they do it? I pray literally just every single time I talk about teachers, literally thank you guys for doing what you do, because you're amazing. I could never. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you did it. I don't know how people are doing it right now. Teaching college students is so different. I thank God every day that I teach college students and not K through 12. Seriously. But anyways, yeah, go on.
No, yeah. So I hear you.
I just had to say that because
it's a special gift. It really is a special gift and a special kind of patience you need. It's a very rewarding, but I just couldn't see myself doing it for a long time. And that was when I took a year off from undergrad to graduate school to kind of figure it out. Because I was like, I could be a social worker. I could be a school psychologist.
Yeah.
I could get a Ph.D. I could be a teacher. And I graduated and I had this North Star, but I still didn't know how and
format it.
Exactly.
But I think that's appropriate. That's more appropriate than getting your PhD or whatever else it is and then trying to figure out what your North Star is.
Right.
Because at least you have the guiding force of like, this is my end goal, and it's broad, but it's doable. And then you're trying to figure out a way of getting to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught the reverse.
Mm.
Which is exactly why I force my students to do research projects now in all of my classes. The class research methods, they do a full one. So they collect data and like analyze it. In all of my other classes, they do a proposal. And they have to like present that. I don't even remember when, but they do it conference poster style. So it's like a baby version, like super baby version. We just don't have time to do a full blown project in any of the other classes. But even in those, it's like, you're doing a systematic analysis, you're narrowing down a topic, you're coming up with a research question, hypotheses, figuring out like your method section, all of that stuff, which tells you a little bit about what research is going to be like, right?
Yeah.
And especially for this field where everyone's like, I have to go get my PhD. I have to go get my PhD. And I'm like, you don't have to go get your PhD. Then they do this project and they're like, I think I hate this. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why I'm making you do it. Because if you hate it now, you are going to hate it when you're doing your PhD. So I'd rather you hate it now because this is only 10 weeks. Your PhD's 5 years. No one told me that.
Yeah.
When I started, I'm not saying I hate research, but I'm definitely saying I didn't have the same exposure. Like I didn't have a good prep in undergrad. I had not good prep in undergrad to go to research. And it was very different for me. I thought PhD was the only path for me. So I did it. I'm glad I did it. I'm just saying, at the time, I thought it was the only path for me. You know what I mean? I didn't have the overarching goal to then narrow down the field. So now I focus really hard on getting my students to figure out what their overarching goal is. So then they can narrow down the pathway to actually getting there.
Well, let me say too, now as a university professor, this is something I think we're all grappling with at institutions is that how do we get students career engaged and career ready?
Right.
Workforce ready.
Ready.
We're so theoretical.
Yeah.
And our classes talk a lot about research, and that's all great foundationally. But a lot of students actually don't get internship experience. They don't go, they're working full time, especially our students, right? They're working full time and have families, right? And then you graduate and you have this beautiful, fancy degree.
And then you don't know what to do with it.
You don't know what to do with it. And you don't know how to make the connections to what you're learning in class to how it's going to help you with your job.
Yes.
And I think we're fundamentally failing a lot of students by thinking that. And now with the rise of AI, it's going to get even more challenging, right? And I don't want to open that can of worms, but I'm
not ready for that conversation.
I think as educators, we need to creatively think about how are we going to reshape our education system to make students career ready, make them marketable.
Yeah.
I
definitely think that's hard, especially for the social sciences, because, well, maybe specifically for our school too, but besides our school, the social sciences have this narrative of like, your bachelor's degree isn't going to do anything. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything. But that's just simply not true. Like there's a lot you could do with a degree. But besides the piece of paper that is the degree, it's what are you doing along the way to get that piece of paper? And that's the thing that's going to help you. So I do think it's hard because students have a built up narrative already in their heads that they're just not learning anything and they have to go get a master's to do something. They have to go get a PhD to do something. But it's not true. Like if you do try to take the time to do X, Y, and Z. That's why I tell a lot of my students about like research experiences or internships or things of that nature that they could do. They just don't do it because they have a narrative in their head already. And I don't know where it stems from. Maybe you can explain because you're in this field a little bit deeper than I am. But of like, I'll do it when I'm done with this. When I'm done with this degree, because it doesn't mean anything, because I'm not going to do anything with it. When I'm done with it, then I'll go and like figure things out. At least from my experience, that's what I see in a lot of students, and it super duper breaks my heart because it's really simply not true. There's a lot you can do with it while you're getting your degree, and there's a lot you can do with it after you're done. You just have to try. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've also experienced that with your students.
No, I think it's important to contextualize too that, you know, there's different types of institutions.
Yeah.
And some institutions tend to have students that don't need to work while going to school, right? Or that come from different opportunities where they have internships because of their parents or whatever. Some institutions like ours, I think a lot of our students have to work, and a lot of our students are still living at home, and they're commuting,
taking care of the family.
And so I think sometimes you have to make priorities, and priorities are like the life situations that you need to deal with, that like having this other thing, even though it's going to be helpful for you, is not
it doesn't
your priority.
Seem important.
Like if we think about hierarchy, you know,
no, you're right.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Like some of our students are unhoused.
Yeah. Some of our students don't have shelter.
Food, right? Like you're not going to think about where's my next internship if you know you don't have a place to sleep.
No. So I completely agree with you 100%. I think we as faculty also have to do just a better job of getting that message across though. Because if the narrative is already there that it doesn't matter, and on top of it not mattering, I have other things to think about. So it super duper doesn't matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. There has to be a better way for us to communicate, no, it does matter. And how do we make it matter, but within whatever you're already working with?
Right.
You know, how do we make this significant and experience, which is part of the reason why I'm just really enjoying teaching research methods right now, because they get to do it in class. You know what I mean? They're taking this class, but they also get that experience. So it's contextualized within the space. They're not really expected to go do it on their own time or go somewhere else or commute anywhere else. You know, they do it while they're there, but there has to be more opportunities accessible to students so they can figure out at the end of the day, what is it that you want to do?
Yeah.
Career-wise, right? And how do you get to that goal? Because it's not just PhD or die. Like that's not true. Yeah. It's simply not true. Let's jump topics just a little bit.
Yeah.
I would love to know how your grad school experience was. It's kind of like grad school application season. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. Letters of recommendation. But just how, did you decide on doing your PhD, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was, thinking about all these different fields, and I did what I don't recommend, which is I didn't apply to very many PhD programs. And part of it is I wanted to stay in Los Angeles. And I also was like, let's just let fate decide. Again, I don't recommend this at all.
That's so funny.
I don't.
That's so funny because I do a little bit. I tell people that they have to do it based on like what they want. Like if you don't want to move out of LA, then don't apply to schools out of LA. You know what I mean? Like if you know for sure you're not moving to Kentucky.
Yeah, I was not moving.
Don't apply to Kentucky. You know what I mean? You're going to spend money and time and like energy on those apps. And if you know you're not going to go there, there's just no point.
Right. So all that to say, I thought, okay, I have to make a decision. Like, what am I going to do? So I found the schools that had this, back to my North Star, right? And the reason why I keep saying North Star is I'm writing a grant right now, and it talks
I actually really like that analogy. By the way.
Really good. And it talks about their North Star, and it made me think about mine recently, and so that's why I keep bringing that up.
It's great. I love it. I think it works really well. It works better than like, what's your purpose?
Yeah.
What's your research goal?
That's
I like
true.
North Star.
So I thought, okay, let's see. So when I read the description of the current school, or not the current school, but the school I went to get my degree, I was like, this is me.
Yeah.
This speaks to me. This is like, who I want to be, what I want to do, this is it.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to do everything I can to get in this school.
Wow.
And luckily I had this wonderful mentor, and I said, tell me all the secrets. And I think what people don't know about graduate school, unlike undergrad, the same, but grad school, there's a lot of unwritten rules.
Yeah.
Right? About how to make yourself stand out, what to do. And like, as a first gen student, I didn't know any of those. So, so mentorship's really important. That's why I'm really passionate about it. I've developed tons of mentoring programs in my career journey.
Yeah.
Because I think they're transformative. And so she said, you want to go talk to this mentor, the person that you think would be a good fit, go talk to her, like see what kind of scores you need, if they're accepting students, see if it's a good fit, if you like the mentoring style. And I thought, oh, okay. So I did all that. I followed every single thing that this person did or told me. And I ended up getting in and I thought, oh my gosh, like that's amazing.
That's cool.
I went to UCLA in the education department and it was really interesting. So when I went in, unlike undergrad, I felt very, I don't want to say unprepared because that makes me like if I didn't come prepared.
Yeah.
I thought I came prepared.
Yeah, me too.
I did everything that I needed to do to be prepared. But the reality is compared to the other students that had more opportunities in school, went to private schools, I was nowhere near having the foundational knowledge that I needed to excel in some of my classes. And that was a harsh reality. I had to work twice as hard, go to tutoring, do all of these things to just survive at UCLA for undergrad. Yeah. And I ended up doing well at the end, but it took a lot. And so for graduate school, I didn't feel that. I felt like I came in and maybe because it was the same school that helped, but I felt like I really got to like prepare myself for this moment. And that was empowering because as a person of color going into a PhD program, there's not a lot of us as it is. And so I felt very good. It gave me a boost of confidence.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning. I think the transition always, you're doing coursework for 2 years. It's a lot, right? But I think the hardest part for graduate school, the hardest part, of graduate school, and then I tell students a lot, is the mental health piece, right? Like I thrive in like having social connections and dialogue, and that's how I learn. And in the PhD program, you take 2 years of coursework and then you're done and you're like, go do your dissertation. Yeah. And it's kind of lonely and it's very competitive because everybody's doing their own thing, but you're trying to finish. And so and then you have to kind of isolate yourselves at some point. I lived in the same community, well, not community, but same state, we'll say, same couple cities as my family. And, I wanted to go to the family parties and sometimes I had to make a lot of sacrifices and I was on a budget and, I was very fortunate to get my whole degree paid for. I had a fellowship, which, by the way, you can get your PhD fully funded and paid for, which was also a cool hack I didn't know about. And your master's, if you get it along the way. So I think that was the hardest part is like really making sure that you're mentally well to take, the criticism that comes with learning to be a better writer along the way. Which I know we can all relate with rejection, going into graduate school, especially a PhD program. It's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of, and what I mean by that is you're applying to conferences. And so you have to, develop thick skin that maybe this proposal is going to get rejected. You're applying to fellowships. You're putting out ideas and then you go to your advisor and they're like, no, this is not going to cut it. And so I think there was a lot of personal growth that no one prepares you for. I was prepared to do the technical work. I was not prepared for like the growth that would happen. And I think that happens in most grad programs, but in a grad program that takes, in my case, it took 6 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I wanted to be prepared for the job market. So I took an extra time. That was, I think hard. And so in graduate school, I had to make sure that I made spaces for me to feel like still connected. I remember being the happy hour host. Like I would get all my— Of
course you were the happy hour host.
My cohort together, we would do happy hours, Oh,
that's nice.
Yeah. So I had to, because that was important for me to feel human. I needed to make sure that I'm not going to lose myself in this process. To this day, like I'm going to set boundaries, and I got married at the time during
while you were in grad school.
Yeah, and I said I'm a student, but that's not my only identity.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to keep going and making life happen. Right.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of cool things on top of that. I taught also at a university while I was in graduate school. So I did a lot. I developed a mentoring program. So I think doing things to keep me grounded, to not be lost in this ivory tower and making myself feel like, what I'm doing matters was really important for me because it's easy to kind of lose yourself. And I think mental health is something that's not talked about a lot in graduate school.
Yes.
And super important.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think, oh my gosh, I also think that it's really hard to explain what a PhD program is to people who are not in it. You know what I mean? Like we say it's hard, but then you're like, why is it hard? And just there's so much to it. And I think you mentioned a really, really important aspect is the idea that you take coursework for 2 years and then the last like 3 or 4, however many years, it's kind of just you. And you're kind of just like there with a bunch of other people, but no one you know, like not taking classes together. It's very isolating. Your family doesn't know what you're doing. You have no one in classes with you. It's just a very isolating experience. And I definitely agree with that. Doing things to keep you grounded is such a good piece of advice for people going into PhD or any grad school. Any program. I do remember when I started grad school, at least my master's program. Did you do a master's or you went straight from undergrad to?
I went straight to undergrad because once I learned I could get my master's paid for while getting my PhD. What a concept! I know, right?
What a concept.
So I said I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I get into the PhD program, and then if I can get a master's along the way, great. Right?
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I did them separately, and I remember when I started my master's program, I felt that unpreparedness. Like I thought I was prepared. I thought I had done all the things, and I was just like feeling so good. And then I got my like reflection. I say reflection with air quotes because it was not a reflection. It was a formal paper. I don't know why they were called reflections, but I got my paper back and at the bottom of it, she like written in red ink, like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm not doing.
Actually wrote, "Are you serious?"
Yeah, she actually wrote, "Are you serious?" on it. And I don't. No. The thing. Every time I don't even blame her. Like I'm actually so grateful. I still speak to this professor to this day. We have like really good talks and chats and like we communicate. We've worked on a lot of projects together. And I don't even blame her for doing that because I was not rereading my work. I had gone through all of undergrad thinking I was a phenomenal writer because I'd never gotten feedback on my writing before. So me thinking I was prepared simply came from the fact that no one had mentored me to be like, you're not a good writer or like you need to edit, And when I had reached grad school, I think when you go to grad school, you expect that people kind of know what they're doing. So I was turning in this work that had not been reread and there was a bunch of errors in it and whatever. And it was like the 4th week and she wrote on my paper, "Are you serious?" And I was like, okay, this is the problem. Something is wrong. What's wrong? And when I looked it over, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is what I, turned in. And it took me it was a huge growth period for me too, to be like, oh, I need to be way better than this. This cannot be the level that I'm operating at. But the fact that I went in thinking I was prepared to not be prepared is crazy. And my entire master's program, we had really good social connections. And I thought it was going to be the same thing in PhD. And it's definitely different. And it's definitely not that. So I think keeping yourself grounded and sane and keeping up those social connections is incredibly important for a PhD program, any grad school, but PhD program specifically because it takes so long. It's not like 2 years. It takes 5-6 years to be done with it.
I will say I did have an experience like that too. You reminded me because I was like, I did feel prepared, but I also had a very humbling experience.
Yeah, there's one of those where it knocks you on the head.
It was very similar to that. I took a class. It was the first paper, and I don't remember if it was like a grade or what, but it was like red all over, and I thought, oh my God. I just remember feeling like coldness.
Yeah, it's like terrible.
I just felt so awful, and I'm like, okay, I cannot let this imposter syndrome kick in. Like I'm here because I deserve to be here, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to figure out how to crack this code.
Yeah,
right,
and to be better.
And so I remember going to office hours. Okay, tell me what you need, and so I made it my effort by the end of that class to get an A and to make sure that this professor knew that I knew how to write because And I can't remember even what the topic was. I ended up writing a really good paper and she was really happy and I learned a lot. But I think that's important. Some like learning how to use feedback as a tool for learning.
Yes.
Right. And so actually one of the projects I have now is on self-reflection, one of the grants. And it's really getting students to look at their exams and like reflect on what happened. Especially if it didn't go well, what can I do next time?
I'm so intrigued with this.
Because it's such a simple tool, but it could change how you actually do the work the next time. And you'd be surprised students get, and I've been guilty of this, they get it and they're like, oh, I didn't do good. I don't want to look at it again. It's, and I get it. It's not something fun to look at.
It's not something fun to look at. But it was a moment like that for me too, where I'm like, oh, this can't be me. Yeah. Right. And I give my students a lot of feedback. I'm like, typing away, at their thing. I tell preface, I'm going to grade this weekend, just FYI, turn your notifications off. And I give them a lot of feedback with the hopes that they would do that, of looking into it and being like, okay, I don't want to be this. I don't want to be writing this way anymore. So how do I fix it? And I hope that they do. You're right. Some people don't. It's not a good thing it doesn't always feel light and fluffy and fun, totally exciting. You're like, damn, this is not a fun thing to look at. But it's very important. I do want to talk to you about grant writing, and maybe we can talk about this one specifically because it goes hand in hand, if that's okay. Yeah. But you do work on a lot of grants, which I think are a little bit different than research, but I'd be happy to hear your explanation of what grant work kind of looks like and grant writing looks like.
Yeah. So, I laugh at myself every time I say that I'm working on grants, because I remember thinking going into the profession, into academia, after my PhD, I thought, I don't want to go into a research intensive university. I don't want to be chasing grants. I just don't. That sounds so intense. And here I am at a teaching institution chasing grants. But the difference is I'm chasing them because I want to. Yeah. And I'm chasing the ones I want to. Yeah. And I find them fun. It's exciting because you get to develop cool programs and the funder believes in you to carry out this work that can actually improve outcomes. Right. Yeah. But to answer your question about what are grants, so grants there's different kinds. There's public, there's private grants, and there's federal grants, right? State grants, you name it. The federal grants are the Department of Education, Department of Labor puts out calls for proposals, and it could be research-based, it could be program-based. It just depends. And then there's research-intensive grants. These are National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, where they're paying you to design a study, conduct it, and then, come up with outcomes. And then there's also private foundation grants, and sometimes they want programs for their own North Star, they want to improve outcomes of X, Y, and Z. So then they give you money to develop a program or to be part of a larger initiative. Nice. And collect data and have impact. I have probably one of each right now, which is really interesting. I have a federal grant that is through the Department of Education. I have a private foundation grant, which is through a program for youth. And then I have 2 National Science Foundation grants. And the 2 are research oriented grants, with the idea of developing, one's an intervention. Well, actually, both are interventions, but one's more research heavy. The other one is intervention/research/programs. Yeah. So I actually, what that means is in order to do all this work, I was able to buy out my teaching. So I'm not teaching at all, which as a professor, you are expected to teach, but if you bring in money, you can buy yourself out to do the work.
And you did just get a promotion to a full professor position.
I did. Yeah.
So that's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so with this promotion, you're still able to, you're not currently teaching, but you're going to be doing grants and then go back to teaching?
Yeah. Once the money basically goes away, you got to go back to your regular duties. But it's interesting. So for those that don't know about how the professorship works, right? You go in, there's folks that are coming in teaching part-time or full-time, and you could be what they call adjunct faculty or lecturer, right? I did that for 2 years while in graduate school. And that's, you're expected to teach, and that's it. That's part of your contract. Tenure track, you're expected to teach plus do other things,
right,
including research, committee service, you name it. And every institution has different rules about how much, what the ratio of that is. At our institution, it's what they call 4-4. So you're expected to teach 4 classes every semester.
Oh, I love that. I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, which is a lot.
It's a lot of
You're
classes.
expected to teach 4 classes, plus develop a research agenda, plus mentor students, plus write grants, plus, publish, plus do committee work, and be a human on top of it. It's actually really hard. And so, but what's nice about it is you don't have the pressures like you would at like a R1 Research 1 institution to produce top tier research in terms of like the top tier journals.
I mean, says the woman working on 2 NSF grants and 2 others.
But I'm doing it because, you know what I mean? But I don't have the pressure.
Just for anyone who doesn't know, NSF grants are not easy to come by. Neither are Department of Education ones right now. And you're working on 4. So granted, you don't have the pressure, but it's like self-imposed pressure.
Yeah, I give myself a lot of work, but I enjoy it. You
definitely do. Yeah, you enjoy it.
I enjoy it. And, it's fun for me. But, at these more like research intensive universities, it's an expectation.
Yeah.
And if you don't make the cut, you're just not going to survive your job. And you have to be publishing, 3 at minimum publications per year.
Wow.
Whereas in my institution, which is now considered an R2, Research 2 university, it depends on the field and all that, but you're not expected to publish that much, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not the same.
Right.
Do you feel like you enjoy doing grant work and research right now more than teaching, or how are you feeling about that balance?
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of an existential crisis about it.
I didn't teach last summer when we were doing the program together, and I definitely had an existential crisis. So,
well, let me explain why. So I love teaching. I mean, that's part of why I do the job that I do, and it would be hard to let it go at some, if I ever decide to move out of this position. But students, it's exciting for me. It's exciting to see their growth, their development, their careers. I love keeping in touch with my students. So great. Now, right now, it happened, my exit out of teaching just for this, it's been 1.5 years because I also went on sabbatical and things like that. So it's not a true exit. It's just like a pause to do this other work. Came at a time during COVID and during like COVID and COVID recovery and during AI.
Oh, okay.
So teaching.
Oh, okay. Great.
Teaching right now when AI is on the rise and students are recovering from like post-COVID is a very different time to teach than it was before. It's very different, right? And also a lot of the classes I've been teaching have been asynchronous. So fully online, that's a very different experience. So for me, it's kind of nice to take a seat back and watch what's happening.
And like make sure everyone knows what they're doing, and then you go in like fully, aware.
Like how are professors navigating like the use of AI in the classroom, right?
Oh my gosh.
That's again a whole other conversation. But so it's been really interesting to kind of take a step back and figure out, okay, this is all happening. How can we do these really cool programs to still make sure students are succeeding despite all these things? So yeah, I do miss it, but I also really enjoy what I'm doing right now. I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm working with a lot of people, a lot of teams. I'm working with a lot of faculty to do these programs. And thankfully I'm surrounded by good company. So it's been really fun. I enjoy it.
Don't talk about me like that.
She's one of them.
No, it's been nice. And I enjoy the work that you do. I think you do really awesome work. So it's cool for people listening and for me to know that, you can bring in the money and not teach for a little bit, take a seat back, because teaching does take up a lot of talking about like how to keep your sanity. Teaching takes up a lot of it. There's a lot of things that come along with teaching that we don't talk about enough, but this is definitely good to know. What was your favorite class to teach when you were teaching?
So one of the classes that to this day, I still like it's on my, people know me for teaching this one. It's called Urban Families and Resilience.
Nice.
And what I love about it is that it challenges students to think about like what's happening in society, but through a developmental lens. So we talk about hot topics like immigration. We talk about education. We talk about divorce, right? Like tons of different things, mental health. But we always bring it back to developmentally, like what's happening with the family system, what's happening with society that shapes, these outcomes or these systems, right? And so, and then how can we as and it's an interdisciplinary course, meaning that it's a general education. So people from all different majors take it. So that's why I like it, because I'm getting perspectives that are not just child development, but I'm teaching them development.
Yeah.
And I'm forcing them to think critically about things that we experience. So I remember having a student, and this was when I first taught the course, and this gentleman came in and said, "Why do I have to take this course? This is like one of those diversity courses that, I'm forced to take. And I am a veteran and I've traveled the world and I know all these things already. Like, why do I have to take this course?" And I said, well, I'll tell you, if you come in with that attitude, you're right. You're not going to get much out of this course, because part of this course is to really unpack some of these things and to think about like how humans, right, grow resilience to overcome systems that sometimes cause harm, right? And so I said, so definitely if you're having that attitude, you're not going to enjoy this course.
You're not. And I'm not going to enjoy this course either.
So that one was a challenge. That course has been a challenge for me. And now it's fully asynchronous. So it's a whole different issue, because what I enjoyed about it was that it was mostly dialogue.
Interaction.
Right? It's interaction. That's where people really get to know each other, people of different majors, it cultures.
Helps with understanding perspective, I think, as well.
Exactly. Perspective taking, right? Which is harder to do asynchronously. But whatever the case is, I still enjoy it. It's one of my favorites, because I feel like regardless of the major, there are things that people can relate to.
For sure.
But you're still teaching through a rigorous lens and through a developmental perspective, and you're challenging folks to think. Right?
And still has like a touch of your field on it, but it's open to everybody for interpretation. I like that a lot. And what do you feel like your favorite or your like maybe most memorable student moment has been? It's like one of my most favorite questions to ask people. That's faculty.
A good question.
Yeah.
So I would say, I had one in my mind earlier, and then I'm like, what was I going to say? But I think a lot of my most favorite experiences are not really like teaching related. It's more like how I became more humanized in the classroom.
Oh, interesting.
Because a lot of times I think students see us as
that chills. That's
like,
nice.
They see us as this, like, and I'll speak for myself. When I was an undergrad, and even when in K through 12, I remember seeing teachers and professors as these like important people, right? Like
so 3D,
they're like
away from you.
No one like my family or like the people I grew up with. They're just like untouchable. And the reality is, no, they're just like you and I. Literally. They're just regular people trying to survive,
Absolutely. I ever?
They have power in this classroom, but that's about it, right?
About it.
And so I think one of them, I have two. One of them was during COVID. I had a baby during COVID. He was a 2020 baby, and he was born in October. And I was just coming back after my maternity leave, and we're sitting virtually in this class, the one I just mentioned. And this gentleman, I like to do check-ins with students, especially in the beginning. And this was 120 students virtually.
Wow.
And the students started to, I checked in with them, and I was like, so how's it going? I know life's a lot right now. We're experiencing a pandemic. And one student opened up about how his dad died because of COVID.
Oh.
And he was like choking up. And then I kid you not, I started to cry. And it takes a lot for me to cry in public.
Wow.
I hold emotions, but I think I was hormonal. I had just had a baby.
Yeah.
I was still recovering myself from like being isolated from COVID, post childbirth. And I just remember crying and feeling so embarrassed, because I was like, 120 people saw me cry. Like, oh my gosh.
120 people are watching me cry right now. Yeah.
But it was also a breakthrough moment, because this was the first day of class. Yeah. And like multiple people started to cry, and this was virtually. And it just like was such a touching moment, because it made us all human. Yeah. Like we're in this class together and we're all here for the same purpose, but like we're all going through it. Yeah. We're all going through like a life-changing pandemic. And it's okay to be vulnerable and human. And like it was a really interesting like reflective point for me. And it actually developed a really cool comfortability with the students to like talk about vulnerable things in the classroom. So I would say
That is one of the greatest stories I've ever heard. I think we
Cute,
just
right?
end the podcast right now. Like, call it a day. I don't know what else I could talk about right now. That's just such a good, honestly, it's a good moment for you as a teacher to be maybe like humbled, I guess, when you're crying in front of 120 students, there's something's happening to your body where you're like, I'm an authority figure and I shouldn't be crying right now, but I can't help it. I'm so emotional. And also for a student to be sharing, my dad passed away, that's so huge. And for everybody else to join in on that and be like, this is my community, my family, my place where I can feel this emotion is such a powerful feeling. So that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
I can't.
So, but I think what, like I said, what I learned is like, when you become like a leader, you're in a space holding a room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like the more open and vulnerable you are, the more that people are going to want to hear your story or want to vibe with you.
Yes.
Right?
Well, this is a great segue. I think you are someone that people really like to vibe with. Whether it be who, me? For anyone who's listening and not watching, she literally went, who, me? With her face. Anyways, I definitely think that you are someone that people like to vibe with, whether it's your students like in your department, or it's people you work with on grants, or it's people outside of grants, or it's people you adopt from different departments, could be anywhere. But I definitely think people enjoy your company. And I think you always have a lot to say about any field or area that you go into, because that's just who you are. You're very well prepared when you go into spaces. And you know what you're talking about. You're a very knowledgeable person. But besides that, you're just cool. I think that you're just cool and people like to vibe with you, which is so exciting for me to bring it into the fact that you have now a public Instagram account, which is another way that students get to connect to you. I remember when I started my Instagram account and it was public, people who are kind of like a little bit older were always like, you have students follow you on that? What do you mean? And I'm like, yes, they do. Because you know what? I get to post about the food pantry. I get to post about events that are happening on campus. I get to post about opportunities and things like that. And they can connect with me because, again, I am also just a human, So it's cool that you have that now. And because it's new, I kind of want to talk about what your experience has been shifting to this format of like connecting with people on Instagram or running like a public Instagram. I see that lightly because so you're doing it for funsies, but how's that been for you?
It's been interesting. It's been really interesting.
No way, tell me why.
So I have my regular like Instagram and other social media, LinkedIn, things like that, right? Where I share. LinkedIn's more professional, but where I share just like what happens with life and with my family. Once I had a kid. I started posting more things about him, and I thought, the public doesn't really need to see this, right. So I ended up making it. I wanted to make sure that it was private and like people. Even though I have former students that graduated, and we keep in touch that way. It's really nice to see what they're doing. I really need something separate where I can actually. People can find me if they want to find me, connect with me. In this case, I had no North Star. I said, I'm just going to do it because I feel like there's some things that I'm working on that are pretty cool. And
there's a lot of things that you're working on that are pretty cool.
If it inspires someone, great. If it doesn't, whatever. It's my life and that's what I'm working on. And then so I started to really talk a little bit about like, what it's like to balance motherhood with, a career and the things that are happening in education that make me angry right now, right? And then just posting some of my stuff. But, I think what it also taught me is that when you do make public things like that, you are also a target of haters, I mean, for lack of a better word.
Well, you can't be this cool and not have haters. Let me tell you. You can't be this cool and not have haters. You got to have haters.
So
what's that phrase? Haters are my motivators.
But I think like you don't get that I think I've always seen that. And I'm one of those people that like I enjoy social media as a form of a platform of connection. But like I don't like to troll. Like it's just not my personality. I don't comment on people's stuff that I don't know unless it's positive. That's like my rule of thumb in life. But everybody has their own way of going about things, and that's do you, boo, right? But like it's interesting. Like just the audacity of what some people will say or even do, right?
The audacity.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I am happy to say that as of now, or as that I can remember, because sometimes I do tend to be like, well, that's insignificant. So my brain kind of wipes it out. I don't think I've come across like too many haters on Instagram, which is so great. And I'm sorry that you have, because it's not fun, right? It's for me, I'm like that as well. I don't like to troll. I'm not going to comment anything unless it's positive, because I don't care. Like, you do you. You want to live your life like that. If I don't agree with it, who am I to input my opinion on you? So I won't do it, but I truly don't understand the concept of haters or hatership. Like, how do you guys?
Yeah.
Do we have nothing else to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is there really?
Well, and I will say, I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't ever want to have like a page like that, because I see like what people post about other people and I'm like, that is so ugly. Like, I don't think I have the thick skin for that.
I don't. Yeah. I don't.
Mine's a teeny little page. I'm not like expecting to go viral. I'm not expecting to monetize it. I just thought it's a cool platform to share what I'm doing. If that happens, by all means, great. I'm not going to say no, right?
Yeah.
But
you want to give me money? No, this is just a little page, okay? For the little people. It's just a little page.
But it's been an interesting learning experience, I will say. And I think also what I've learned is, just if anybody does decide to go and create their own like page to be a content creator, not that that's what I'm doing, but what some people do is like you're really making yourself a target and you're making yourself vulnerable, and how do I explain this? But like your track record of online is public forever.
Yes.
So like what you post is public, and just being mindful about it and things like that is really important.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And at the end of the day, like, not everyone's going to like you, and that's okay.
That's okay.
That should not be your North Star.
This is why I know it shouldn't be like, I want to be loved by everyone. It's impossible to be loved by everyone, because we all have different views and different things that motivate us and different things that keep us going. It's impossible to be loved by everyone. So you just have to do what is true and authentic to you, and then call it a day. And if you have haters, great. Like, it is what it is. You must be doing something right, because it is what it is. Like, you cannot not have haters, I always talk about like judging. I love judging, but my judging always comes from a positive place. Like, I know that sounds contradictory, but it's not. I'm not like hating. I'm just like, this is an interesting thing. Let's talk about it and dissect it. Let's unpack it, which is exactly what judging is. Yeah, it's unpacking it. It's like, why did you choose to do that thing? But what led you? But it's not the same level of hatership where it's like, I'm going to comment and post and tag and go tell and do this and do that. Like that just crosses a boundary for me, that I just do something else. Work on a grant. Write a grant. What are you guys doing? Write a grant, so many of them right now. I think what I want to end on is, you talked a little bit about having a child, you're married, so you have your own life fully, because you're a whole human being that has another whole human being. How do you balance, because I'm all about balance, how do you balance your motherhood and being married, being in a relationship, with also being for grants, working, mentor, teacher, all of the things?
I think accepting that there is no balance. I mean, and let me explain what I mean by that is that, no. It's a positive thing. What I mean is that I think people have this notion that to live a perfect life, you need to have a 50-50 balance with work, with, and what something else, or like 20-20-20 split. And it doesn't work like that. That's not humanly possible, right? I think accepting that there's going to be waves where I'm going to be, for lack of a better word, a badass mom, right? Yeah. And I'm going to do something really cool for my kid, and we're going to, it's going to be memorable. And then there's some days where, sorry, kid, like, I have to work on this thing. You're going to have to do this with dad, and I'm going to have grandma come and help watch you, because I just can't be a present mom today, because this other duty for work, it has a deadline. Yeah. Right. Or some other days, right? Like, okay, well, we're going to take time off and we're going to go have a date with my spouse, right? And we're going to have a good time. Like, you can't be fully present in every single thing.
All the time.
And so once I learned to accept that, then I learned, okay, well, that's my reality. Then what can I do to make sure that that it doesn't get too like lopsided, and making intentional time. So one thing as a developmentalist that I learned is it's not so much with kids. It's not so much about spending 5 hours with them. It's about spending quality time, even in a short increment, right? So I'll try to do like at the end, an intentional 30 minutes of we're going to read a book together and we're going to play a reading comprehension game after, right?
Nice.
Like, and what I mean by that is, so in the book, gamify it. In the book, like, how many of this did you see? And he gets really excited or okay, now we're going to do Legos. Like whatever it is, undivided attention, put the phones away. Be present with my kid,
That's
right?
Beautiful.
And so that I've tried to incorporate because I recognize that I don't have the luxury of time, and I don't think any of us do, right? And something's got to give, and so and also with school, like I didn't grow up in a household where my mom would volunteer. She didn't have a job like that that she could do, right? My dad was like, schooling stuff is for mom to take care of. And now, like, I'm part of the PTA. Who would have thought, right?
You're part of the PTA.
And it's so hard to go to those meetings because I don't have time, but I will make it happen, or I'll go volunteer.
Well, I think that's really nice. Essentially, you're saying presence. Like, do what you can, when you can, and do it with presence and intention, which is such a beautiful thing, Instead of just doing it, do it with intention. Be present when you're doing something.
Yes.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for joining me today. I just remembered how I actually want to end is I want you to do a cookie taste test.
Okay.
Because if anyone who doesn't know, Dr. MC is a cookie monster. She's obsessed with cookies. So there's 3 different types of cookies on the table. The top one is a chocolate peppermint. These are my favorite cookies. They're not warm anymore because it's been hours since I baked them.
Oh, you actually baked them?
Baked them.
Oh, okay.
They were frozen.
Oh, okay. Not from scratch. Hey, you baked them. That's all
I baked them, okay? By hand. I took them out of the packaging and by hand, I put them on the tray. And by hand, I put them into the oven.
Okay. It's not your grandma's recipe as long as I can be honest about my review.
Unfortunately, you can be honest about your reviews. Not my grandma's recipe.
Okay.
Peppermint, chocolate, and then chocolate chip.
Okay.
I'm going to do a chocolate peppermint.
Okay. Well, yesterday, I was actually talking to my husband about desserts because he's called me a dessert snob because one of my favorite pastimes.
You're judgmental.
Is,
See what I mean?
Is to find, no, not judgmental, find good quality desserts.
Or
so
you agree,
if I'm going to have these extra calories, I'd rather have something that's like well-made and delicious. Yeah. They call me a dessert snob. And I agree. Okay, fine.
I absolutely agree with you. This is so good. This is Sweet Lorraine's, by the way. Sweet Lorraine's cookies. That's 50% of the sugar, just FYI.
This one's a little dry.
A little dry.
But
it might be because I baked it.
But it has a good flavor. Let's see. Which one's the other one?
This is peppermint. Chocolate, peppermint. This one's chocolate.
This one's chewier.
Oh, yeah. This one is so good. This peppermint chocolate thing, I never thought I would like this one. So good.
Well, thank you for the cookies.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. We're going to enjoy the rest of these cookies offline. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you so much, and I'll literally see you tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.